afternoon. Thanks to everyone for being here today. We are here to announce that a total of 10 people have been charged in a Northeast Alabama drug conspiracy for conspiracy to traffic in methamphetamine. This is a drug conspiracy that involved an investigation, a proactive investigation that took place over the course of approximately 12 months. The conspiracy charge in this 19-count indictment covers about an 18-month period. We have individuals here in Northeast Alabama, as well as 2 individuals who are currently in custody in the state of Georgia penitentiary system. Those 2 individuals have organized this drug trafficking ring and directed the activities of this conspiracy from the Georgia state prisons using contraband cell phones. Now, during the course of this investigation, law enforcement has purchased approximately 9 pounds of methamphetamine, so this is significant for North Alabama. Of these individuals, we have 2 who are Mexican nationals and 1 who is a Honduran national. There is a 10th individual who has been charged in related charges also for possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine. Now, these charges, as I said, we have an overall conspiracy, and we also have substantive charges charging some of the individuals with the actual distribution of methamphetamine as well as the possession with intent to distribute this drug. The penalties for this type of crime are significant in the federal system. Many of these charges carry mandatory minimum sentences. Some of the charges have a 5-year mandatory minimum, others have a 10-year mandatory minimum. And the maximum sentence is life imprisonment. So we are very fortunate that during this investigation, we had a number of different local and federal and state law enforcement agencies working together, mostly under the umbrella of the Northeast Alabama Safe Streets Task Force. And I am privileged as a prosecutor to have worked with this task force and the agencies that comprise this task force over a number of years. And this indictment is yet another example of why this system works so well. And I'm very happy to have worked with all the different agencies that are represented up here today. And with that, I'll turn it over to the special agent in charge of the FBI, Roger Stanton.
Thank you, Laura. It is a distinct pleasure to be here today to talk to you about the efforts which have culminated as a result of partnership that the FBI, other federal, state, and local agencies enjoy through the Safe Streets Task Force initiative that the FBI executes across the country. But here in North Georgia, I can tell you, through my 20 years of service, there is not a more tightly knit law enforcement community, more committed through the leadership of the sheriffs and the chiefs of police that accompany me up on the stage towards addressing the threat of illegal drug distribution and the violent crime that's associated with that. I'm a father, and when it comes to keeping communities safe, I look to law enforcement to make sure that my kids, my family, my friends, my relatives can live in a community, can go to school, can go to church safely in a drug-free environment. Through the efforts of task forces like these, we're on the front end fighting these battles. And it's the efforts of the state and local officers who have a much more reactive role than the federal agents do. Day in, day out, they have to make reactive decisions with criminals on the street, with the distribution of drugs. And they're the ones that are the bedrock foundation for these federal investigations. When they bring the FBI, and DEA, ICE, and other federal agencies into these investigations, our goal is not just to disrupt, but to dismantle these organizations. And it cannot be done without the leadership of the men and women here. You also see the district attorney's office represented here. We will use federal and state charges to go after these individuals so that we can eradicate the crime of drug distribution. And again, I just want to take this opportunity to thank my partners up here on the stage who I'm proud to serve alongside day in and day out. The men and women of the FBI truly enjoy the relationship that we have, and that I have confidence as a parent in the community here that they're doing their utmost to make sure that we're drug-free and the violence that goes on with that is mitigated through these operations. And I guess at this point, we turn it over for any questions you have for any of the chiefs, sheriffs, or the DA, or the U.S. Attorney, Ms. Hodge.
So you've got these guys that are, some of them are prison, and they've got these contraband cell phones. Did anybody say, hey, there's some people talking on a phone? I mean, you know, these jailers, they walk by and stuff. I mean, how's that possible?
So that is a great question. I think if you talk to the Department of Corrections, whether it's in the state of Georgia or here in Alabama, that is a problem. And one of the issues that brings the FBI, who's not primarily a drug or investigative organization, DEA on the federal level, when they wake up in the morning, they are addressing drugs. When they go to sleep at night, they're focused on drug distribution and eradicating that. The FBI is brought in for situations such as that is there corruption? Are there state officials in the correction system that are providing phones to those inmates? And that's why we try to do this comprehensive team effort to address that criminal activity as well. As you would imagine, having cell phones in the prison system and directing drug transactions from prison through use of cell phones that are contraband brought into the prison system is something that both the Department of Corrections and the FBI and all the partners you see up on the stage are dedicated to addressing.
Do you anticipate any charges against the people that were operating the facility that these individuals were in, that were supposed to be monitoring this?
The investigation is ongoing, and I anticipate that there'll be additional areas that we're going to have to research and to investigate to make sure that that supply of cell phones is eradicated. But it is an ongoing challenge in prison systems throughout the country.
Are mug shots available for these people? The 8 people who were not?
As is always the case, Department of Justice isn't allowed to provide mugshots, but if some of the local county jails, maybe where they were booked or are being held, if they have them, you know, there's no prohibition against their supplying them.
Can you explain how this works? So these guys are in jail again, they're making calls to whom, and some of these people are not in jail.
Right. So they're basically organizing and making plans that are associated with the drug transactions that are associated with the charges.
But so these guys that are in prison, they're calling people on the outside who then do the dealing and are able to sell this based on what the people in jail or their call, or whose call is it?
So the people in jail are part of this organization, and they play a role in facilitating the transactions that go on out in the field. So whether I don't want to provide any specifics about what is happening in that, but they are certainly part of that, and they're not out on the street doing the hand-to-hand deals, but they are involved in the overall trafficking and transactions that are being set.
Is that the evidence?
Yes, that is some of the evidence.
Can you explain what that is?
Paul, do you?
It's crystal meth.
But this is all that was seized?
It's a sample of some that was seized. I don't know if this is all actual.
You know what the street value is?
It's about $100 a gram.
So that would equal.
So you're looking at 9 pounds. You're looking at about $400,000.
And what was the attraction, or why is it isolated to Chattanooga and Northeast Alabama? Why aren't there 2 other people who got some out west or in the Midwest? Why is it centralized to our area?
I think it just has to do with the organization. This particular organization that we have addressed, and we've tried to mitigate their operations for this particular investigation. So this is not one regional crime. There are others, and they're also going to be targeted through the investigative activities of the Safe Streets Task Force with the leadership of all the men and women that are here with me. It's a joint endeavor.
Are you going to arrest any of the users, or do you have any idea who got what?
You know, what our job is to disrupt and dismantle the trafficking of the narcotics. So we're focused on who it is that's out there distributing the narcotics.
But I think Karen sort of hinted at, how does this happen? I mean, 2 people who are already in jail, yeah, things happen, things fall through the cracks, but to have 2 people make contact with 8 other people and to do this much, or that little, I guess, but how does it really happen
So I think the trial, that, you know, once they have their day in court, that'll play that out, and you'll get more details on the intricate operations of this or any other drug organization, the relationships that are developed. That happens. Sometimes it's through families, sometimes it's through neighborhood associations, but I'm sure that during the course of the trial that you'll have an opportunity to see that.
You have 2 Mexican nationals and 1 Honduran.
That's right.
Do you anticipate trying to deport them?
ICE is part of this joint task force operation, and you know, as the prosecution continues, I anticipate that ICE will play a role in this, the prosecution and subsequent actions that are taken after the trial.
Can you say whether or not?
Out about is I noticed that you've got, of course, Marshall and DeKalb County as part of that. What actions, directly or indirectly, did Marshall and DeKalb counties play in any of this?
So when it comes to a Safe Streets Task Force, these are regional task forces, and one thing that I'm proud of is we have chiefs and sheriffs up there and DAs that are committed to addressing the region, because you can't disrupt and you cannot dismantle a drug trafficking organization if you're just worried about your own jurisdiction, because we all know that there are influences that come from other jurisdictions. So I can't provide you any specifics about what DeKalb role is played there, or what Etowah County or Gadsden PD or Heflin, you know, everyone is playing a joint role, and we're trying to eradicate whether a transaction is planned in Etowah and executed in DeKalb. We consider it all part of this region, and that's why that's what the task force is focused on.
And are you guys looking at the jail's infrastructure? You know, anytime things happen, I'm sure you assess, but how is this changing the way you guys are doing things in that jail or overall in other jails or prisons?
So I can say that the FBI is working, and I believe that the state agencies in Georgia and Alabama are well aware of this investigation, and we're constantly trying to improve upon the defenses that the prison systems have from allowing contraband in, and it just shows our determination. We're going to continue to investigate it. We're going to follow the leads and the facts where they take us when it comes to contraband going into federal or state prisons.
Does this concern you? And this may be far-fetched, but you got El Chapo who is still on the run. You got people, the folks up north escape the prison. It's almost, I mean, it seems like prisons are in the headlines now for something going wrong, something not working correctly. So does that concern you in any way to know that something as little as this happened and other things happened? Is there any kind of connection or concern? Are you guys regrouping, a task force looking at things overall?
I don't think there's any connection to El Chapo, to this contraband being introduced into state and federal prisons. It's just something that we need to address. We've made it a focus of our efforts, and we're going to make sure that we continue to do what we can to eradicate contraband coming into state and federal prisons.
You know where these illegals?
This is gonna be the last question.
Okay, they headed to the United States. You know how they got here, by chance?
I don't have specific information on how these illegal immigrants came